Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us today on this wonderful, wonderful Monday. We're doing a live show today, so we're live on WYSL until 1 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We're also down the line, too, over at WACK out in Newark. And, of course, streaming live online as well, the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, the Free Solution group, and the Kevin Wilson pages, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate y'all engaging in the discussion. Today, got a couple different topics to talk about. Bail reform getting some press lately, so I want to talk about that, turning into a campaign issue. And someone brought it up on Friday's show. I think Sean brought it up on Friday's show, Sean Hannon, looking into the Metabiota stuff with Hunter Biden, whether or not he was investing in Ukrainian biolabs. And we'll go over kind of what's true, what's maybe less true, and where everyone is spinning this for their own political needs. Because there's, with one of these stories, with it being sensational, with people only knowing little bits of it, it's pretty easy for Republicans, Democrats, Russians, whoever, to spin this to meet their needs. So we'll try to sort through all that stuff if we end up getting to it on this show. But first, I want to talk about bail reform stuff, because, well, it is campaign season. We're seeing Democrats and Republicans shift their values, change their policy positions, and do whatever they can to fit into whatever mold they feel they need to fit into in order to win elections. All right, we're seeing something similar with Kathy Hochul, who's starting to maybe say, well, maybe we should look at some changes to the bail reform laws. She's seeing some pressure there. And part of that pressure is driven by a rise in crime in New York State, because we have seen Russia. I've talked about it on the show before. Normally, I see a rise in crime with stuff, or I hear people talking about rise in crime, and for most of the last 20 years, it hasn't been true. But the last couple of years, there has been an actual rise in crime. There's been more violence and more petty crime too, smaller crimes too, more theft, more property damage, more everything. It's kind of gone up across the board. Is it related to COVID? Is it related to bail reform? What is that related to? The bail reform laws ended up happening in 2019, getting implemented a couple of years later, in 2020, and we're starting to evaluate the effects of that. So for many of the folks listening, I know, I've gotten calls about this when I talk about it before. For many of the folks listening, that the criticism goes like this, right? That the bail reform laws mean that people are getting released when they're going to commit some sort of crime, whether it's drug crime, theft crime, things like that. They're getting released and then going out and committing further crimes, because there's no way to be able to detain folks who may be dangerous, and this one small crime is a way to cut off someone from going on a dangerous crime spree, right? So if someone is stealing let's say a video game from a store, right? Like they might, prior to this law, get set cash bail, and maybe they make it, maybe they don't. But the criticism of the law is, okay, well, now they're just getting an appearance ticket, told to show up to court on another day, they get out. And I saw this comment coming from Rich Patel too, which, he's been a guest on the show several times. Rich Patel says, hi, in rare instances, judges should remand dangerous people, but otherwise we need ROR. I don't know. Cash bail is being used for punishment instead of flight risk. Get rid of it entirely. And Rich brings up a great point here, right? So this is the criticism. This is how people think cash bail works, right? Is that when someone commits a crime, okay, well, we want to hold them, so that's what we need bail for. That's not what bail is actually supposed to do, though, right? What bail is supposed to do is ensure that you show up for your court date. It's like you put a deposit on showing up for court. I'm kind of glossing over some stuff that goes associated with it. I won't go into like bail and bond and all that stuff. But in a nutshell, it's I want you to show up to court, so we're going to put bail there, and so you don't lose that money, or bail bondsman doesn't lose that money. Then that makes sure that you show up to court, right? The problem is that if you're not able to make that bail, if you're not able to pay whatever fee that is, $500,000, $5,000, whatever it is, you remain detained. You remain in jail. And this was something that was happening to a lot of folks who, and continues to happen in some ways, but something happened to a lot of folks who just couldn't afford that. So if you get caught for petty theft, you have no money, you end up sitting in jail for weeks and sometimes months because you can't pay that fee. Whereas if you were wealthier and you could get someone to pay that bail on your behalf, or you could pay it, you get out. So you end up with this criminal justice system where people who don't have money end up staying in jail, even if they've only been accused of a crime and may or may not have actually committed that crime. And you contrast that with, again, richer folks who have been accused of a crime and they're able to pay that money and get out until their trial proves their guilt, or if the attorneys aren't able to, the DAs aren't able to prove their guilt, then they get released. But in the meantime, they're free. So what happens if you have a job and you're not able to make bail, and you are sitting in the county jail for a week, 2 weeks, whatever, until you or your family scrape together the money to get you out? Well, do you lose your job? Do you miss other important appointments? Who takes care of your kids? So this is the problem that bail reform was trying to solve. It's this. And I agree with that intent. Now, Rich, who commented earlier, is bringing up a good point in that, well, what about truly dangerous people? Do judges have the ability to detain people who, for a variety of reasons, may be dangerous? Maybe do they have a past record? Now, see, that's something that I think is worth discussing, but something to keep in mind with the bail reform law is that it doesn't apply to everything, right? So the cash bail went away for a bunch of smaller crimes, again, small theft, but the violent crimes, and I know some folks bring up the gun possession crime, but the truly violent crimes where someone is getting hurt, where it's a significant amount of money stolen, where someone is getting killed, cash bail is still applicable there, and judges can still deny bail in those situations too and detain someone that is truly dangerous. They just can't do it under the law right now if someone is caught stealing a bike or something, right? So they can't say, well, you're dangerous and you might go on a bike stealing spree, like we're going to hold you indefinitely until your trial. Which is, especially now, especially the last couple of years, trials can take a long time. The court system is trying to adapt to catching up on cases because of COVID, because of being shut down for a while. So it's trying to get these cases through, but there's a lot of stuff going on. And so what I want to discuss for the rest of this time is, well, what does the data actually say? Is there a rise in crime in New York specifically that's related to bail reform? And then what are some other options to learn from this situation, to improve from it, and to make sure that our justice system actually works for everybody? And I'd hope everyone listening today can agree to that point, right? We want to make a justice system that makes sense, and that you can't just get out or not get out based on the amount of money in your bank account. No, we want people either being detained or free to go until trial based on how dangerous they are, and you have to do so based on the presumption of innocence, right? And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about, again, whether or not people out on crimes that would have been available before are committing more crimes. If you have any thoughts on this, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Oh, those injury attorney ads.
Hurt on your couch? Call 555-OUCH.
It's kind of cute watching that injury attorney buying breakfast for a crash test dummy, but while fun is fun, there's nothing amusing about getting your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or when you need defense for a DWI charge. Christopher Johnson takes your case seriously, and you'll feel like you're his only client because when you meet with him, your case gets 100% of his attention. So instead of cute singing jingles and magic phone numbers,
fall out of a tree? Call 33333.
write this number down and keep it with you. 585-415-3803. 415-3803. After all, Christopher Johnson knows you're no dummy. Get individual attention and integrity, experience, and expertise. Put the power of one on your legal team. 415-3803. Stay safe, be healthy, drive sober. Christopher Johnson Attorney, personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents, DWI defense.
As a veteran of the United States military, I can finally get the opportunity to enjoy special events, things that we couldn't afford, thanks to VetTix. Every empty seat at a concert, a game, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Visit vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
With disastrous leadership in Washington, corporate media that's a captive of government, and increasing censorship of the news, it's important to preserve freedom of speech and truth, whether it's related to endless COVID mandates, Albany corruption, or city violence. Try something different in 2022. Utilize the WISL stations to advertise and grow your business. Take advantage of our huge audience, entertained and informed by great conservative programming. Affordable and effective. The WISL stations, the voice of liberty. Call 346-3000 to advertise.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wiltz, your host today. Thanks so much for joining us today. WISL, WACK, a little bit later, and online too. Appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate y'all listening today. We're talking about bail reform to start out the show, and just kind of laid out what bail's supposed to do, what the intent of the law is. We're going to talk about some data today, but first, we have a caller on the line, Keith from Rochester. Keith, what's on your mind, sir?
Yes, sir. Right up front, Mr. Wilson, you're a nice guy, but I'm going to get to the heart of the matter, and that is the racial component. We have a supermajority in Albany, supermajority Democrats representing large non-white populations in the New York City area. I want to be intelligent on this so that no one comes back at me, Keith, say, oh, you're racist. So I really upfront prefacing this, I want to talk intelligent here. If I were to say to that super majority of legislators, especially the non-whites, African American, since per capita wise, it's black males who are involved in the corrections system, I would ask non-white Democrats who are passing what they perceive as bail reform because they're concerned about perceived racial inequalities and equities from the past. I would ask them the big question: when you return these criminals to their neighborhoods, they're basically going back to non-white neighborhoods where fellow non-whites live. So do the non-white Democrats who completely control Albany, do they want to feel good about themselves that they're giving the non-white criminal the benefit of the doubt, but, and it's a big but, at the same time exposing majority non-white neighborhoods to the re-entrance, and here goes everyone, the re-entrance of the black male criminal. That right there is the heart, everyone. We have to acknowledge that the black male is involved in the criminal justice system more than any other group, the black male category. We all understand, in closing on my part, that there are those
Keith.
racial injustices from the past, but to those supermajority non-white Democrats who control Albany, you are putting your own neighborhoods at risk. If you really care about your fellow African Americans, are you going to expose them to black criminals re-entering those majority non-white neighborhoods?
All right. So Keith, I want to first of all rephrase your point nicely. Second of all, let's acknowledge that not all crime is committed by black males. Like, that's just a fact. I mean, statistically, it's the more white people are committing crimes. It's that's what it is, right? Like, it's not I didn't even want to make this a racial thing, because I'm actually talking about this more in terms of class issues. But let me try to understand your point, because it is something that is worth bringing up, right? That many of the neighborhoods that are most impacted by violence, by high levels of crime, are low-income neighborhoods, particularly African American and in other minority neighborhoods, right? So that is true, and that is why many of these areas have mixed feelings about police reform. And this is somewhat distinct from bail reform, but mixed feelings about police reform, because in some ways they want more police resources to take care of the violent elements that live in some of those neighborhoods. In other ways, they're like, well, sometimes police end up entering situations and causing some problems and hurting people. So that is a complicated set of politics that I think is worth talking about. And I think that's the point you're trying to make here. But setting that aside for a second, we'll just talk about the bail reform element. Keith, is it appropriate for someone who is potentially violent to get out if they have enough money to do so? Because that's what the cash bail system do. So is it fine if someone has enough money to be able to go out?
No,
and if they don't have enough money, is that fine?
No, it's not. No, it's not. But that's the system. If you are rich, if you are truly padded in the wallet, you get better justice because you can hire the better attorney. Let me make the analogy with crime to welfare.
Let me just turn the bail system, right? Again, if you have no money, you commit a small crime prior to the 2019 bail reform, you'd be held in detention because you don't have the funds to pay for that bail. You could potentially be.
If you're a wealthy person and you commit a petty crime, they usually ask what your relation is, your stability to your community. If you are a good citizen who has money and you are deemed to be enough of a pillar of the community, you're probably going to be cut loose. If you are of the lower strata in society with someone who only has a public defender, you're probably going to have a harder case to the judge that I, whomever of lower strata, am a safe risk to let go. So yes, we have.
I mean, is it that seem right to you? Because like, what if I just don't? What if you're some 17-year-old kid who doesn't know how to go? His family doesn't know how to get a good lawyer, who's accused of a crime you didn't actually do, and because like you don't have community connections, you might end up in detention for weeks. Is that right?
Well, you gave the answer. It's young people. It's going to be a 17-year-old who does the crime, and probably not a 37-year-old. Now, just this morning in the
Either
news.
way.
Pardon me?
Either way, it doesn't make it right in any situation. The 17-year-old, a 35-year-old, like whatever. Like, is that right for someone to sit in detention because they couldn't make bail?
Well, but when you return the 17-year-old, the younger person, and it's the young, everyone, who does the crime.
But you don't know that. You don't know that they are actually guilty of that crime. They have to be proven guilty in a court of law. You don't know it yet.
When they are arraigned, the prosecutor presents the evidence. But you have to answer, Mr. Wilson, on your end. Do you want a violent, vicious 17-year-old?
I don't know that they're violent.
Well, I guess that's where reality and having common sense and being a judge sitting on the bench, that's why a judge has to determine. That's what they get paid, that they balance the scales. If you're asking me, I always rule in favor of public safety. I'm not going to return a 17-year-old punk to the streets because, he's on the younger side and we should be cheerful.
So listen, kid, even if that 17-year-old is actually completely innocent, that they did nothing wrong, that they were accused of a crime that they did not in fact commit, you would err on the side of locking that 17-year-old up for weeks or for months because, like, maybe they could commit an act of violence in the future. But you don't know that. You're okay with that system.
You keep wanting to make it a minor crime. What happens if, we're approaching, as they had on the news, the 1-year anniversary of the man who was carjacked and the 71-year-old man who was gunned to death by these teenagers. I do believe, sir, those teenagers are still being held a year later.
They can be. Because that's not what bail reform addresses, which is the topic of this show. If someone commits a violent crime, they are still eligible for bail or eligible for, like other forms of ensuring that they get back to court, where the court has to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that they are guilty of committing a crime.
All right.
And so there are things like ankle bracelets. There's things like, it could be appearance stickers. It could be cash bail. It could be any number of other things, because the cash bail reform laws of 2019 do not apply to those specific violent crimes.
All right. Before we run out of time here, Hochul is having to bring this up again because she's getting political pressure. There is rising crime, has been right along throughout the state. Why would a good Democrat like Hochul feel the need to backpedal unless she is starting to be more clear-sighted and more balanced in her evaluation that crime in the Empire State is getting out of hand, and that even a good Democrat like her, the Dems who are notoriously soft on crime, she's having to come back with a harder a litmus test to determine whether someone is held. So you, Mr. Wilson, have to go to the Dems and ask them, why are you feeling the need to review bail reform? Because it's becoming painfully obvious to many good Democrats there is rising crime in the state, and our party, which controls Albany, had better do something about it. That's the crux of the question, sir.
Yeah, it is a great question to ask. And I have a theory, and my theory is that Democrats are cowards. They are assuming that this is what the voters want, and it feels like an easy fix because that's what people assume that the source of the problem is. They assume that the source of the problem is the bail reform law and not any number of other factors that contributed to rising crime, not just in New York, but in many, many other places around the country too, who most of whom did not enact any sort of bail reform within the last couple of years.
Well,
so we have.
I'm going to be honest with you before the time runs out here. I think, like many, and I'm going to be blunt, many white people, you want to evade the racial question. It's like welfare. White people have always been on the welfare and the dole in larger numbers than black people. Always, every last year, there are more whites on welfare. But when it comes to percentages and per capita, black people outnumber percentages when it comes in the larger numbers for them. Crime affects the black neighborhood.
We're coming up on break. Thank you for calling in. You've certainly made this segment interesting and given us a lot to think about. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more on A Free Solution. Give us a call if you want to call in like Keith did. 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back on A Free Solution in just a few minutes.
Celebrating 35 years.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the News 10 NBC forecast on WYSL. For tonight, decreasing clouds. A few flurries will be possible if we stay on the cold side with a low of 18. A cold start expected for Tuesday and a cold afternoon as well, high of 33. Mix of sunny clouds expected also with a few flurries during the morning hours. Going into Tuesday night, partly cloudy skies expected with a low temperature of 20. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Alex Bielfeld on your WYSL stations.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Hi, my name is Ryan Bourne.
And I'm Danica Bourne.
And we're the owners of South Coast Tax. We would like to thank our Lord for protecting us from evil. Psalm 91 states, "He is my refuge and my fortress, for he will rescue us from every trap and protect us from deadly disease."
South Coast Tax are Christian-based tax accountants and attorneys who specialize in releasing bank levies, wage garnishments, and filing complex tax returns. We are the leaders in acceptance of offers and compromise with awesome results.
We are also a small firm who will treat you like family and not just a number.
Call us today at 1-800-TAX-3156 for a free consultation, and we'll take the time to explain all of the programs that you qualify for in order to allow you a fresh start.
In John 8:36, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. And one way we can achieve that is by being debt-free. So let us help you today. Call us at 1-800-TAX-3156, and together we can help achieve this goal while putting the IRS tax debt behind you for good. Again, that number is 1-800-TAX-3156.
With disastrous leadership in Washington, corporate media that's a captive of government, and increasing censorship of the news, it's important to preserve freedom of speech and truth, whether it's related to endless COVID mandates, Albany corruption, or city violence. Try something different in 2022. Utilize the WYSL stations to advertise and grow your business. Take advantage of our huge audience, entertained and informed by great conservative programming. Affordable and effective. The WYSL stations, the voice of liberty. Call 346-3000 to advertise.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pat Brophy from UR Medicine, Golisano Children's Hospital. When your favorite team wins, it's because they work together. When a medical team saves a life, it's because they put all their skills together. That's why Golisano Children's Hospital is so dedicated to creating a healthy community. It will give kids in the region access to advanced care, help us do groundbreaking research, and provide top-notch training to the next generation of pediatricians. You can help us do this, so please give to Golisano Children's Hospital.
Families who choose cremation may worry about security. Are the ashes in the urn, in fact, their loved ones? Bartolomeo and Prado Funeral Home is Monroe County's exclusive provider of cremation with confidence. Their 10-step cremation process guarantees that the cremated remains returned to you are those of your loved one. To learn more about cremation with confidence, call Bartolomeo and Prado Funeral Home, 720-6000.
WYSL. Hi, this is Joe Santani from the radio show Medicare U. Join me along with my partner Andrea Zaleski from T65 and Beyond every week as we explore the ins and outs of Medicare. We're your healthcare translators. If you're 65 or will be soon, you'll need this important Medicare information for the best coverage, best health, and best price. Medicare U, Tuesdays at 7:30 and Sundays at 1 on the WYSL stations.
WYSL.
Shanks Enterprise in Lima is your full-service residential and commercial waste hauler, and we've been serving the needs of residents of Livingston County dependably for generations. In this business, operators come and go, but Shanks Enterprise will be around, serving your needs and keeping in mind the interests of our community. For reliable, clean refuse collection at the most competitive prices around, call Shanks Enterprise. Whether you live in Avon, Geneseo, Lima, Livonia, or Honeoye, Shanks Enterprise is the choice of area residents for generations. Call Shanks Enterprise in Lima, 582-2120.
Let more physical therapy.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us on this wonderful, wonderful Monday. We're live here on WYSL until 1 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Shout down the line to our friends listening over at WACK and our friends listening online as well. A Free Solution Facebook page, a Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, and the Kevin Wilson pages wherever you are today. Thank you for being here. And today we're talking about bail reform. And I know this is an issue that gets people animated because, on one side you got is this leading to a rise in violence in our communities? And that's terrifying. It is terrifying. And we want to make sure we get these policies as right as possible. On the other side, we have to respect the rights of people who are accused of crimes, who may have not actually done those crimes, who may not actually commit an act of violence ever in their life, and who may be held in order to preserve a sense of community safety. And we have to factor in the disruption, the injustice, the violence of throwing someone in a cage who may be innocent. We have to consider that part too. And that's where a lot of my sympathy lies as well, for both these communities and for the people who are accused of crime, who may be held and put in prison, put in a dangerous in jail, put in a dangerous situation, and they couldn't get out because they just didn't have enough money. That doesn't seem right to me. And so we got some folks like Kathy Hochul looking at, well, maybe we need to change this. And that, to me, this is my theory, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to prove this, but to me, Kathy Hochul is, in a way, virtue signaling. She's trying to acknowledge the criticism of people worried that the bail reform laws were the source of the rising crimes in New York State by saying, well, we'll look at expanding the list of bailable crimes. But again, the point of bail is not to detain someone. It's to get them to show up to court. Bail is not and should not ever be used to hold someone in detention. That's not the stated purpose of this. Bail is to get someone to show up to court. So if judges or the intention of the state were using bail to using a monetary barrier to keep someone in prison, that would be unconstitutional. That would be a violation of the Fifth Amendment. Yeah, it'd be a violation of that individual's constitutional rights, because you have to be proven guilty in a court of law, and we can't use bail as a means to hold someone. It's a means to get someone to show up to court. So when we talk about the bail reform laws, keep that in mind. That is legally what is supposed to happen. So getting more people in jail, keeping them in jail longer before their trials, before they're proven guilty, just because they don't have money, that's not how that system is supposed to work. It often is how it did work, but it's not how it's supposed to work. And just because you're rich does not mean you should be able to get away with it. So again, should we look at things like, again, that comment I got in the first segment from Rich Patel? Should there be more ways for judges to be able to make determinations about whether or not someone is truly dangerous, and there should be other reasons for them to be held? Yeah, maybe. I'm open to that. Again, holding someone prior to a trial should be an extremely rare event, though. They have to be so extraordinarily dangerous that they cannot be safely released to the public. And it can't just be, well, this person is young and is of a skin color I don't like, and that scares me, so I'm going to hold them. No, that is nonsense. That is not what we do in a free country. That's not what we do here. It's not what we should do here. It's what often happens, but it's not what we should do here. No, it has to be, if there's, a mass murder or something. Okay, yeah, that's the type of situation where you hold someone before trial. But in most instances, unless there's a flight letter, unless there's some reason that you need to hold someone, it should be very rare, because that person deserves their day in court. They don't deserve punishment prior to be proven guilty. It's a constitutional system we have, and thank God we have that, because that is far better than what happens in, again, places like Russia, where you can just be grabbed off the street, accused of opposing the government, and thrown in jail for 15 years or conscripted. My goodness, that's an ugly system. So let's talk about some of the actual data, right? So in our county, my county, Monroe County, there have been since January 2020 all the way through June 30th, 2021. I'm going to share the link with this data. There were thousands of people who were arraigned in court. 8,492 criminal defendants. They were arraigned in court. 12% of those, 1,035, were arrested on new charges awaiting trial. So a very small number of people were arrested on something else. Again, that's all charges. Of those 12%, only 136 of them were arrested on any sort of violent felony. So it's about 1.6% of the total. So again, of all those folks, 8,492 people, 136 of them, after being released, and again, this is for any crime, were then rearrested for a violent felony. So, and I go, for those 136 people, that matters. It's not great. But the majority of those people did not commit any other crimes. So should they have been held? Should we create a system in which they are held when accused of a crime before their trial? No, because the majority of the people, just they show up to their court date, they do their thing, they take their punishment, that's it. We can't create a system that, to create the illusion of safety, we hold people accused of crimes indefinitely. You don't want to live in a system like that. Conservatives don't want to live in the system like that. Imagine, like, if you could be accused of violating the SAFE Act. Well, you're always posting about your guns. You're making memes about guns. We're going to accuse you of a crime, and because we think you're dangerous, we're going to hold you in jail until, like, we can do a trial and try to prove your guilt. Would you think that's just? Do you think that would be right? Of course you don't. And I don't think the same thing should be happening to other folks, because then the courts have to prove, the state, the government has to prove that you're actually guilty. So if you're in that situation, no, I don't think that you should be punished until the government can prove you've actually committed any sort of crime. And I think we should repeal the SAFE Act altogether, but same thing. And if they made arguments about, well, they could be dangerous, they are, after all, gun owners. No, that's not how this works. That's not how our system ought to work. That's not how our constitutional republic, where we have liberty, should work. But the state data across the state, Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, it all kind of looks similar to that about 1.5 to 2% of people did end up going to commit violent crimes afterwards. But again, something to keep in mind with this is that even among all those folks, some of them could have gotten out on cash bail anyway. And often people did. You could get out on cash bail and go out and commit another crime. You can get detained, you may lose that money, etc. But with cash bail, it could still happen. The only thing that changed here is that the amount of money you have can't be used as a reason to detain you before your trial. And if you're well enough to give that money over to someone, or to get a bail bondsman who will back you, okay, that's you're free to go until show up to court this day. So that's what the data says, is that this made sense. And something else to keep in mind before we go to break too is that some of those folks who are accused of a crime, again, they're innocent. They went to arraignment, they went to court, they got a trial. State couldn't prove that they were guilty. They were let go. And it would be a massive, massive injustice if someone had to sit in a jail cell for however many weeks or months just to to have it turn out that they didn't actually commit a crime. And you know, I asked listeners here today to just think about, like, does that make sense? And so does this law make sense to make sure that more people sit in those jail cells until their trial? Would you want your family member to be sitting in a jail cell until a trial? And are there better ways to ensure that they are kept separate from community members so they could be dangerous, or they are, you know, monitored or something else? Is there a different way to do this than just cash bail? And I think that's the system that we started to do. And again, I know some folks ain't gonna like. I think this is a good law. I think this is the one of the biggest advancements in liberty that New York State has done in a while. It's one of the few good things that have happened in the last few years in New York State. And I don't want to see it pulled back, not by Republicans, not by cynical Democrats who think they can just tweak one thing and they'll get them popular enough to not lose any more seats. It's not perfect. It's not that we can't fix some things about it, but overall, I think this is the right direction. This is where I hope the state keeps going, is that to make sure that our rights, everyone's, it's not just about people of color, but everyone's rights are protected. You know, I got a flag behind me that says, "Don't tread on anyone." That's what it is. Don't tread on anyone. Protect the constitutional rights of every single New Yorker. And it's one of the few things that Democrats get right. All right. So when we come back, though, we'll keep talking about, I'll wrap up any other points with this, and I'll see if I can get to, I want to talk about some of the Hunter Biden stuff. We'll see if I get to that. Thanks again for joining us on Free Solution. If you want to call in, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000, or leave your comment online. We're going to be back with more on a Free Solution in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Dear Dr. Sussman.
Dear Dr. Sussman, I just wanted to write to all the wonderful people who work with Dr. Sussman and Dr. Pogel at the Center for Cosmetic Dentistry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Each person in the office made me feel my smile.
Not only am I completely happy with my smile, but I feel you've been there for me with all my dentistry.
I've had several dentists in my life, but never a dentist of your caliber. You have state-of-the-art.
You keep current in your field as evidenced by your numerous diplomas and certificates, and your entire staff is really the cream of the crop.
I'm thrilled with the outcome of your skills and artistry. It's made such a difference in my life.
Dr. Sussman, Dr. Pogel, and the entire staff at the Center for Cosmetic Dentistry take great pride in providing not only advanced dental care, but extraordinary cosmetic dentistry. They love what they do and have a partnership with their patients toward long-term dental health.
For a bright, confident, beautiful smile.
Thank you, Dr. Sussman.
Thank you, Dr. Pogel.
Thank you.
Change your life, change your smile.
For more information, call the Center for Cosmetic Dentistry at 22 Smile or visit 22-smile.com.
There's a place in the village of Avon you and your critters will love. Whether they're big or small, whether they've got hair, fur, or feathers, Avon Feed fits every need. There's a full selection of pet foods, bird feeders, and wild bird food, plus garden tools, quality grass seed, and a great selection of dry shod boots. Buy 10 bags of quality wild bird food, get the next bag free. Choose farm feeds and great equine products from Poland Grains. Find everything for your pet from feeding bowls to toys, leads, collars, beds, crates, and tie-outs. Avon Feed and Supply has what the big pet chain stores will never have. Tim Cole and his great knowledgeable staff. Choose from premium local products like Firefly, dairy, goat soaps, and lotions. While you're at Avon Feed, don't forget your two-legged pets with River at Thousand Island cheese and great flavors, including the new 12-year-old cheddar, plus Chef J James Bourbon Meat Sauce. Once again, nut butters and Nunday mustards. Open weekdays 9 to 6, Saturday 9 to 4. Avon Feed and Supply. West Main Street at the bottom of the hill, just west of the Circle.
A free solution.
All right, welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson yesterday. Thanks again for joining us. We're talking about bail reform today. And I want to make just one last point on this. And that's again that the people going around saying folks are literally getting killed over the bail reform law, like in Monroe County at least, not a single person who has been charged, accused of a crime, and not held, and then released has been accused of committing the second crime of manslaughter or murder. It hasn't happened yet. So like literally no one has gotten killed over this. That's a lie. It's just not true. And I know, and I've seen folks who are opposed to the law say things like, well, we're just not collecting the data on it. I'm like, well, you don't know that. Well, I'm supposed to just like trust that you feel that this is true? No, I'm gonna look at the data. Again, I'm open to changing my mind on these things when I see the data on this, because I've changed my mind. I used to feel differently about this issue, but the data and my position on constitutional rights says this is a good thing. We shouldn't get rid of it. Sounds like we got a caller on the line though. John from Rochester. John, what's on your mind?
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, you bring up some good points regarding bail reform. Just use the January 6th rioters as an example.
Yeah.
Those poor guys and women, I mean, it's like Russia in Washington, D.C. right now. The discretion that these judges, or lack of discretion that these judges use to keep these guys and ladies in jail for that long period, it's unbelievable. But, I was surprised. I think you mentioned 12% of offenders have been rearrested for other crimes. I just wonder how many crimes they committed, the people that didn't get rearrested, how many crimes they committed but didn't get caught.
I mean, that's a fair question. I don't know the answer to that. You know, and that's something like as we continue to look at the impact of this, like we should see like, well, what crimes are reported that we don't solve, because a lot of crimes are reported nothing happens to them, right? And I've never had any crime that I've ever reported actually get solved, as far as I'm aware. Stuff that's bricks thrown through my window, bikes stolen, nothing's ever got solved. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it is a fair question to ask.
That'd be interesting to see, because I know when, regardless of the crime, or whether it's robbery or shoplifting or whatever, the people that do get arrested for these specific crimes, who knows how many crimes they committed similar to that before they got caught. And some of these criminals, they're pretty smart. They get away with a lot. But anyway, that would be a great thing to revisit, to see what the stats are on that. But one of the issues too is the lack of respect that the police get today versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I think has a lot to do with it too. I think people are more emboldened to diss the police on minor stuff. I see it every day here downtown, where panhandlers get into traffic right near our building, as an example. Before the Bail Reform Act, the police told me before, I think it took effect January 1st, 2020, because we had a lot of problems around our building here. And they used to be able to come out, and if the guy was a frequent violator of getting into this traffic, they would actually pat him down and empty his pockets and kind of put him through that embarrassment, and that helped. Now they don't do that, and so these panhandlers have less respect for the police, and they just keep coming back. The police will chase them away. They just keep coming back because there's nothing to stop them from coming back. The police really have their hands tied, and the police just warned me about that. Now that's a minor issue, minor crime, if you want to even call it a crime. But
no, I mean, like it's a thing, right? Again, I frequent downtown. I used to live over by Monroe Ave, where like has been a problem that sometimes in the past too. You get really aggressive panhandlers, and even when police try to do something about it, and it's tough. Or again, does it again? This is slightly different from the cash bail issue, right? Like again, you don't want someone in jail just because of that. But if you have someone repeating doing a crime, harassing people, sometimes getting aggressive with folks, which some of these mostly guys are, then what do you do about it? And again, that's a problem that the community does need to solve. And I'm not going to pretend that I fully know the answer to that one, because it's a quality of life issue. If you're scared to go walk down the street because people are going to like harass you, like in a very aggressive way, and some of these folks really are aggressive, that's a problem, and something police and neighbors should work together to solve.
And then you've got a lack of respect for the police, but then on the reverse 180 degrees on the reverse side, you have the police. They're not going to work as hard because they're especially on serious crimes. They're going to be very hesitant to make arrests because of some of the consequences that could happen to them. Resistance. What do they do when somebody resists? They're restrained from now putting a chokehold on somebody. Certain types of chokeholds. And I'll tell you, I've over the years, I've gotten some confrontations, not recently, thank God. And man, when you're in a scrap, you're fighting for your life a lot of times. You'll do anything to restrain the other person who's being physical with you. So the police, I think, take a hands-off approach now today versus what they did 10 years ago, and that contributes to decreased crime also.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the solution to that, and I know some of the folks on the left end up not liking this, but it's like it's better police training, right? It's like knowing ways to de-escalate, knowing ways to escalate physical force in a way that's not likely to unnecessarily harm someone that you're bringing into your detention, right? Because we don't want someone to harm someone they don't have to. We understand that there's situations where that's going to happen because they are violent, trying to hurt police officers, things like that. But better training to figure out, not needing the chokeholds, which are now made illegal. There are other ways to restrain folks, particularly when it comes to like young children. Like there's that case last year of like the little girl getting like pepper sprayed. I saw that. I'm like, man, that's totally unnecessary. That did not need to happen. And so I don't know, that's kind of what I think I would like to see out of that. What at least the city of Rochester had kind of attempted to do in some ways is better training in situations like that. Because I think most police officers, they're looking to, they're gonna try to get the bad guys off the street the best way they can. They don't want to hurt people for the most part. I'm sure there's some bad ones out there, but they're just trying to keep the streets safe. And for someone who's having a mental health crisis or worse, just being out of control, it's just okay, get the situation under control, move on. All right, anything else to add, John, before we go? If you're still on.
I was just going to mention the police. I'll tell you, I think that's a big part of it. They're going to avoid confrontation as much as possible because some of these people, regardless of their race, are pretty strong people, and you're going to try to avoid getting into a scrap with them because they're going to put a choke. You might need the chokehold to restrain them.
All right. Well, appreciate the call, John. We're out of time now. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to A Free Solution. Larry Sharp will be in tomorrow. I will be in later this week. Talk to you then.